The gods are smiling on me. Joe just called in. Let's go straight to the live line. Hi, Joe.
How you doing, Fawn? Nice
Good.
to be with you this morning. I'm here in New York, and we're barreling out of this snow yet.
Yeah, and I was just saying I couldn't get through on your phone. I was telling the listeners to be patient. We've had a little snowstorm they might have heard about.
Well, I don't know about that. That was a mobile phone you called, and who knows? In Westchester County, we got hills and dales, and the signals are not that good. But I'm happy to be with you, and let's talk about the message that we're spending money we don't have. We're borrowing from countries like China that we don't trust, that don't share our values, and guess what? We're giving up the American dream. My dad came here in 29 through Ellis Island, 1929, 15 years of age. He didn't come here for a government program. He came here for opportunity, for a job. I'm his oldest son, and that's the way America has worked. Are we going to continue that for the future, or are we going to let China now take number one economic status from us within 10 years?
They already kind of have, haven't they, Joe? I mean, they own us. They're talking about bailing out the EU, and I think they saw it coming and they took advantage.
Well, they don't own anything yet. Don't forget, China is an economy much like Japan. You remember 15 years ago we were worried about Japan, all that money they were bringing here. They bought Rockefeller Center, and what happened? They went into a tailspin. Why? Because they don't have the kind of economy we have. We have an internal generated economy. In one way, it's very good. It's consumer-based. It's not an export economy like Japan had and like China has today. But on the other hand, when people are afraid to lose their houses and their jobs, the consumers don't spend and they don't borrow. Right. And that's why we're in this funk right now. But the point is, China does not have an internal economy. They have an export economy. They need us. And that's why we're able to borrow the money we have. It's almost, $1 trillion right now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
this Congress has spent more than all 100 Congresses before them combined, and yet they're still saying that they inherited this debt.
Well, listen, why do you think I wrote the book? You can't let politicians talk to you about numbers. Let them talk about appropriating money. That's a political function. But when they replace the accounting system with a cash-based method in the budget process, what they do is they then keep liabilities off the books. And that's what's going on today. They want to talk about $14 trillion in debt. Believe it or not, that's the good news. The bad news is that when you add in the liabilities, actuarially computed, and professionals do this. They got to do it for GE and General Motors, for the SEC, and they got to do it for the federal government. That number last year was $45 trillion for Social Security and Medicare alone. Then you have to add another $5 trillion for civil service pensions and military pensions. These are not funded, and they're not even put on the books. So we're lying to the American people. I'm a certified public accountant. I'm the first practicing CPA ever elected to the U.S. Congress, House, or Senate. I was trained in what was then the world's largest accounting firm, and one of our assignments in 1975, when I was a young partner, was the bailout of New York City. That was my baptism by fire when I found out how these large municipal governmental agencies hide things. And it's going on today. The people are being fooled, and it's got to be straightened out. The book, as you know, just came out on Amazon, my book, Unaccountable Congress. It doesn't add up. If people want to get it, Amazon.com. And if you want to know who I am and you want to see more about what's going on, my foundation is Truth in Government. That's IN, not A and B. TRUTHIN, government.org. And you'll see the game that's being played. Why is this, Fawn? It's human nature. Politicians want to get reelected, so they want to get you the best possible numbers they can so you don't start criticizing them. And then if that doesn't work, they blame it on the past, as you just said.
Yeah, and here's the problem. It's getting worse and worse. You've been screaming about this since 1992. You've been trying to get somebody to listen, and yet people ignore it, and they act like they don't understand what's happening in Washington. I'm with you, Joe. I think everybody elected should have to be a CPA at this point.
Well, you can't have that many CPAs. They don't like to run for office, by the way. That's one of the problems. It's not easy to get elected in America. I just had a very tough Senate race in New York here, and I can tell you, as a fiscal conservative, when you're in a welfare state like California and New York, it's very difficult, to get elected. But let me tell you, we need to do a lot better. There's still time. We got to turn this big ship of state around. We've got, in my calculation, about 5 years. If we don't do it, and we don't have a shared sacrifice, in 10 years, China will become the #1 economic power. And why is that bad? Because they're still a communist state.
Exactly.
They repress their people. We are the beacon to the world as a democracy. So we cannot trust, to China.
No, and we have these idiotic young people who can't remember far back enough to see what socialism can actually do to a nation. They think it's a good thing, and it's frightening.
And that's what Margaret Thatcher said. The trouble with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
Right.
Isn't that something?
What do we
and that's what could happen to us.
I mean, what do we do?
I started this not just in 1992, Fawn. When I got elected to Congress in 1984, I started serving at 85 and found out I was the first practicing CPA. I was amazed. I started working right away on a bill to bring a chief financial officer to every governmental agency and department. There's 28 of them, and a cabinet position as well. Well, that bill was passed in 1990, signed by George Bush. He sent me a very nice Dear Joe letter. People could see it in the book. It's in the back of the book. Well, but, they dumbed it down. They didn't make it an independent function the way I'd asked, like the Federal Reserve. Now, I'm not happy with the Federal Reserve. They need to be audited, and they need to be audited with outside auditors, independent auditors, not government auditors. But the point is that we need to take numbers and the calculation of numbers and the financial reporting of numbers and the financial management of the U.S. government away from politicians, and we need to bring professional accountants, not bookkeepers, not controllers, not Department of Defense auditors. We need certified public accountants, certified financial managers, people who know what these numbers mean and who could point to the future and tell us, you know what, if we stay on this path, we're going to be unsustainable as an economic entity, as a country, and we're not going to be able to be competitive. That's the key word today. Are we going to compete with the rest of the world? I don't think so, not the public policies that I see today. So I've been saying this since 1985, and if you look at the cover of my book, you'll see the national debt card
yeah.
to the young people. Well, the first book I came up with, 92, I put my voting card. People don't realize, Fawn, that congressmen and congresswomen vote in the House with a plastic card the same size as your Visa or MasterCard. And I figured out that even with Ronald Reagan, we had 1 year with a $200 billion deficit, that every time I put that card in, I was raising the national debt. So the first chapter of my book is titled The Most Expensive Credit Card in the World, a Congressman's Voting Card. And that's the case because we just keep raising the debt limit. And if I were in the Senate next year and I came close, I would do what Rand Paul is now talking about.
Yeah.
Stop that debt ceiling from being raised. At least let it come up every month. Don't give $1.9 trillion leeway like we did last year. That was mindless when Obama has already told us that he's going to spend, so much money that in the next 10 years the national debt that's bonded is going to $20 trillion. No, let it come up every month. What do you need this month, government? $100 billion? Tell the American people what you're spending it on. Share their pain.
That's
and
right.
The other issue, Fawn, that I keep saying is that we don't have the leadership we need in either party to convince the American people that we're in another war. Not World War II, but remember how we won World War II?
Mm-hmm.
FDR, a shared sacrifice. The women went into the factories. The men risked their lives and lost their lives, many of them, on the lines. My father was in the food business. There was rationing. Everybody knew what the goal was. Everybody put their shoulder to the wheel, and we won that war under long odds. What are we doing today?
We're bickering and getting nothing done. I have 1 minute left, Joe, in the time before we have to go to Neil Bortz, but I do want everyone to understand this man is very conservative fiscally. He's literally the Tea Party way before the Tea Party was even thought of.
Right.
And are you going to run again, Joe?
Well, I've always kept the door open in my life to options. Mm-hmm. So that's a possibility. But right now, what I'm doing in the interim is I'm going to now be very active with the foundation Truth in Government. I don't know whether you or your listening audience saw me on Fox Business the other day on the Jerry Willis Show. Yep. So I'm going to get on more of these shows, sound the alarm. I kind of see myself, Fawn, as the New Age Paul Revere. I want to ring the bell. Very few people, I may be the only one, have this unique experience of 22 years in a large accounting firm, doing work on the private sector and the public sector, New York City's bailout, and then going to Congress for 4 years. And then when I get out in '89, because I was elected in a very liberal Democratic district as a Republican, I couldn't hold it, I set up a foundation to continue the work. So that's American. When people can say, you know what, I don't need a title. I don't need to be elected to do something. I could do something as a citizen, civic action. And I did it by setting up a foundation called Truth in Government. And I'd like your listening audience to go to www.truthingovernment.org. They'll also see the little button there for Amazon if they want to get a copy of the book. And by the way, the book is not owned by me anymore. It's owned by the foundation. And what I do is I give it away to colleges.
Out of time, I'm sorry. Unaccountable Congress, it doesn't add up. Joseph J. DioGuardi, he's a CPA, a former New York congressman. He's ringing the bell saying the idiots are already here. So let's get fiscally responsible. Yep, we need to do something. Joseph, if I were in New York, I'd vote for you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your time today. We will be putting a story together, and I'll send you a copy of the interview for your website.
Happy to be on your show again.
Thanks, Joseph. God bless, and Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Okay, bye-bye now. His name's Joseph DioGuardi. He has got some of the best ideas you may ever have heard coming out of the mouth of somebody who was actually on Capitol Hill, someone who doesn't want to increase the spending, someone who wants to stop what he sees coming and has seen coming for literally over 20 years. It's time we start listening to people like Mr. DioGuardi. 8:59.